Hello, horse lovers. So, welcome to my little presentation on the elemental horses. And each of these elemental horses corresponds to one of the earthly elements plus spirit. So you have earth, air, fire, water, and spirit, and an elemental horse that corresponds to each of those. And each of those horses has the qualities of that element. So to use the elemental horses in your life and in your working, they're sort of like mental prompts. Like if you see the symbol of your high school, you think of your high school. Or if you look at your wedding ring, it prompts you to think of what that stands for. And so these horses also symbolize certain energies that you need. So most people are familiar with spirit animals or totems, and spirit animals typically they have certain qualities that inspire you, that you want to embody, that you want to use in your workings or whatever you're trying to do. Like hummingbird might tell you to be light and playful, and whale is the keeper of our stories, and coyote is a prankster. Well, these spirit animals, they have qualities, but they aren't exactly telling you to do something. This is where the elemental horses are a little bit different, because you call upon them when you want to get something done. But each is a specialist in its own unique way. You can't get everything done the same way every time. Every job doesn't call for a bulldozer. Every job doesn't call to be graceful. So you decide what you exactly need for that purpose, and that's where you go. Now, in the middle of the four earthly elements, you have spirit. And most of the times, that's where you're going to be. You're going to be with spirit horse. In the middle, your own natural self, connected to source, understanding who you are and what you want, what you need, what you don't need. And from that center point, you make a decision about, where do I want to go with this situation? Maybe you're suddenly dealing with people that are difficult. And so you stay in the center with spirit and say, how will I react to that? How will I choose to respond rather than just responding out of reflex? So the visual prompts you create of these horses prompt you to react in a certain way. So what we're going to do is go through a presentation about these horses. Bear with me. And so here are some pictures of those elemental horses. We have, they aren't in the order that I say them, but in this order, we see earth, we see water, we see fire, we see air. And like the elements corresponding to the tarot, the horses also correspond to the tarot. In the tarot, you see the pentacles is earth horse. This horse is very stable and grounded, waiting patiently to go forward to finish his task. You see plowed fields in the background. This horse has a job to do. You see water horse corresponding to cups. And you notice that this rider is carrying a cup of liquid, we assume. So this horse needs to be graceful and smooth in order that he not spill his cup. Knight of Swords, this corresponds to air horse. This horse is mid-journey. He's full on to his course, and there's no turning back now. He's going to complete his course. You see Knight of Wands, and this corresponds to fire horse. And you see the knight's robes are in tatters, and this horse is rearing up and ready to go. This horse is ready for whatever battle is presented to him, able to think fast and move fast. Spirit horse corresponds to a card in the major arcana, the Sun card. And so this is your place, this is your center. So you can even imagine that all is well here in my beautiful little garden, safe on this loving, caretaking, patient horse. And this is my center where I'm going to stay and not be knocked about by other people's desires or demands. So just like a car, cars come in all shapes and sizes. And if you were thinking, okay, I need to pull a trailer, and you just said, I need a car, and this is what popped up, you'd be in a fix. Likewise, if you said, I need a car to go out and run a trail, and you get this, well, that's not going to work either. So horses are like cars. There's specific horses that do specific things, and horses are better at one thing than they are at others, real horses and elemental horses as well. So you can see the range in sizes. We have a tiny Shetland, the smallest breed, and a Shire, the largest, and everything in every shape in between. So let's talk a little bit about Earth Horse. You've probably seen Budweiser Clydesdales, plow horses. These are the big boys that get in and do the job. And what these horses are known for is to have calm, even temperaments and to dig in and get the job done. These are your big machinery of the horse world. And you can see some old pictures that among their jobs, they pulled logs this size, they plowed fields, they don't stop. Even when they're tired, they don't stop. Earth Horse continues to move on. So if you're in a situation where you need to get the job done and there's no turning back and there's no quitting, you would call upon your Earth Horse imagery. Now, when I was writing my book, Earth is my biggest weak spot. I would rather go off and play than sit down and do work. And so I really had to pull up this horse in particular to get through the job. These horses descended from the battle horses that fought the medieval wars, and from horses that were strong enough to carry armor and a knight in full armor into battle all day long. So they're incredibly powerful, and these are the descendants of the Earth horses we see now. And just to give you a visual, I'm about 5'7", and I'm standing next to a Belgian on the left and a Shire on the right. And you can see that my head easily passes right underneath both of these horses, and we're on level ground. Just to give you an idea of the size we're talking about. These are big boys. And there's some Budweiser Clydesdales, the more flashy versions, but even though flashy, just as powerful. And this is Earth Horse's job. This is sort of an iconic Earth Horse. He's tired, he's muddy, he's dirty, but he's going to finish the job no matter what. So when you really need tenacity, this is what you call him. So then we get to Air Horse. Think about times when you don't really have a plan, or you don't know the best way to go about that plan. And so you call on Earth Horse. These are the jumpers, the racing horses, the horses that go fast, they begin their course and they follow through and they go straight to the end. So you might need this type of imagery when you say, okay, I need a plan and I need to follow through. Excuse me. And here's some examples of these jumping horses that will clear any obstacle because they're asked, a race horse that will go from beginning to end with all the speed it can muster. And some of the obstacles we ask these jumpers to do, this is an eventing horse, are astounding even to look at. But this is a horse that knows it's got a job to do, it knows it in a precise pattern, and it's going to get it done. And there you go, obstacle, what obstacle? That jump is probably about 5 feet tall, and that horse is easily 2 feet over it. So when you're seeing mental obstacles, mental problems, things you can't figure out, you want to call that Air Horse imagery. I can get over this, whatever my fix is. This is a breed called the Akal Teke. It's a Turkish horse, and I think it's a rather iconic looking air horse. It's so light and smooth, and it glistens in the sun. Its coat is said to be iridescent. So that might be a mental image you could take with you. And yeah, sometimes spills happen, but that's not the goal. Whatever your obstacle is, that horse carries you over. Then we get to fire horse. Your fire horses are the horses that they override their own instincts to flee and do the job anyway. A horse is a prey animal, and its instinct is to run whenever possible. So it's not a horse's instinct to go into a rioting crowd or into a fire or to race mail over the country or to get in and cut cattle. But these horses feel the fear and do it anyway. So this could be anything that you might need help with, from giving a speech to facing a difficult person to solving a big problem to doing some crisis intervention. You might need to be able to think fast on your feet and respond immediately. So these horses also descend from the war horses. They have that bravery, but not necessarily the bulk of the earth horse, because they need to move quickly. And these horses were used in war right up until the end of World War II, was the last armed horse unit. Pony Express happened because of horses. And you see these horses here. It's not a horse's nature to run through fire, nor is it its nature to confront cattle, but it will do what it's asked to do. And that's the type of horse you need to get the job done. They're also quick, like this barrel racer, and get where they need to go in lightning speed. These horses are also encompass the war ponies of the Plains Indian tribes. The horse was transformative in the life of the Plains Indians in particular, and carried them right into their hunting and their battle. And the quarter horse is an iconic fire horse, the color of fire, and small, quick, and muscled, and ready to do the job. Ready for any battle. Then we come to water horse. These are the dressage horses that sometimes you may have something ahead of you that requires patience, finesse, polish, practice, study. Any course of study, any endeavor such as dance, art, writing, music, some of these things can't happen overnight. And sometimes our inclination might be to just give up. I don't have the patience for this. I don't have the time for this. Well, if you really want to master something, you have to have the time and patience. And this horse prompts you to just accept that. For a Lipizzan or stallion, for example, they train for 7 years before they ever perform. So some things just require time and patience. And this is a dressage horse, collected and graceful. And this is a Lipizzan. These horses also learned these moves from war, but now have since turned their abilities to performances, and their feats are amazing. To jump in the air and kick out backwards like that is not a natural movement for a horse and takes years to master. So if patience is your problem and the road ahead just seems too long, water horse is your horse. It's all about the patience. And then we get to spirit horse. So this is your spiritual center, where, as I said, you'll spend most of your time. And in horse lore, the white horse is iconic. And so it's a great thing and a bad thing to be a white horse in horse lore, because they're the first to be held up as icons and also the first to be used for ritual purposes, as in sacrifice. So the white horse's story is long and convoluted, but for our spirit horse, she's inspired by the Celtic creation story of Ioka. And in this story, Ioka emerges from the sea foam and walks out on land, and everything else that's living, every animal form, comes from her from that point. So in this creation story, we're literally linked by lineage to the white horse emerging from the sea. And so when you think about the sea, that's emotions, that's our subconscious. And so this is where our feelings and our thoughts that sometimes we aren't even aware of, they're all sort of pooling around in there. And the imagery of Ioka coming up onto land, she's bringing those unconscious feelings and thoughts and worries and concerns, desires and resentments. She's bringing them up onto land, into our own awareness, where we can really figure out, who are we really versus who were we told to be. And she inspires us to stay true to your own real true self and to make all of your decisions and all of your strategies from that point rather than from being blown about by what everyone else thinks you should be doing or even what your own negative self-talk thinks you should be doing. So she helps us clear that out. And there we have a horse emerging from the sea. And Epona, the Celtic horse goddess, also is a descendant of Ioka, a direct descendant. She is her daughter in this Celtic creation myth. And Epona represents horses in mythology and the care of horses and nurturing of horses. And there we have more imagery emerging from the sea. So a lot of times you won't need to use all of your horses. And so spirit horse is kind of where you're at. You want to go through every day being the real you, being the genuine you, not repressing how you really feel and making your decisions based upon what you really want to do and what you really feel. And there we have each of the horses lined up, each of them in the elements. And so when you need to get something done, you call upon these horses. Now I'm going to jump back over here and close that video. And I'm going to give you a little representation because some people say that's a lot of horses to keep straight. It's really not. And it's not something you may be doing all the time. So what I have here, this is my little handy Swiss Army knife. It's actually from my tack box from the barn. So this whole knife, this is a horse. This is the spirit entity of horse. Now, if I open it up, I have this big central tool. And there's spirit horse right in the center, ready to figure out what you need. And then we have, earth horse could be the can opener. Air horse might be the pocket knife. Fire horse might be the saw. And water horse might be the can opener. So you can see here, not all tools do the same job. You may not need every one all at once. You may need one, some, or all. Maybe you just want to have them all handy for whatever you're doing. But this is how this works, to keep in your pocket and use the tool that you need through that mental imagery. And when you don't need it, there it is. It's in your pocket and it's there if you want to use it. And just to give you an example of some symbology, for my earth horse, this is called a harness brass. And so I use this as a tactile prompt to keep writing and to stay on track because that's my weak spot. And I literally can put this on and I can feel it against me. It reminds me, oh, I think I want to look at cat videos. No, you need to stay on task. So a harness brass is something you'll see on the headstall of the big horses. The headstall would be right up here, almost at the third eye on a working horse. So that's my prompt. And you can find your own prompts for each of these elemental horses to help you stay right on task whenever you need to do something. So now I think we're ready to take some questions, and I'm happy to give you whatever answers I have. And we're waiting on the questions. So while we're waiting, I'll show you the book that this comes from. There it is, with the words backwards because we're a mirror image. But this, I go into depth on this and more. So there it is. Okay. Jennifer is asking me how to connect with me further. I am on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. On Instagram, the Elements of Horse Spirit has its own page. I would love to connect with you there. I also have a website, DeborahD'Angelo.com. And let's see. Do all animals have the same purposes? No, all animals across species, that came from Diana. They don't all have the same purposes. A spirit animal each represents certain entities, and horse within itself has its own purposes. Each horse has its own purpose. Oh, and Tammy asked the name of the book. The name of the book is The Elements of Horse Spirit, the magical bond between humans and horses. And April says, my husband's been riding for years, but I'm a little intimidated by horses. Their size, advice. Okay, here's a funny fact for those of you who are intimidated by horses or fearful of them. Horses mirror human emotion almost exactly. Sure, there are some outliers. Some horses can be real jerks, just like people, but most horses mirror your energy. If you come up to a horse and you're afraid, the horse will know instantly that you're afraid, and it'll become more afraid, and then you're likely to become more afraid, and so the horse becomes more afraid. So in going up to a horse, there are some basics you need to know. You don't throw your hands up around their head. You don't just walk up to a horse and pat it. You extend your hand first. But before you go up to a horse, you need to get still. You need to be calm. You need to connect with that horse and approach it like the spiritual animal that it is, and not a car that you jump in and drive. A horse is not a car or a motorcycle. It has its own mind and its own feelings. And you have to honor that and respect it and make a connection with that horse first. And so start small, offer a treat, offer to pet, watch the ears and watch the eyes. Horses' faces are actually capable of more expressions than a dog's. And the communication is very subtle. If a horse's ears go back, it's not fond of what you're doing. If it tucks in its tail, it's really not fond of what you're doing. And if you're near that tail, you might be about to go sailing. So watch the horse. It's telling you whether or not it likes what you're doing or not. And so to April, start slow. Start with a gentle horse and work your way up. And remember, get calm and centered first, and the horse will reflect that energy. And let's see. We have a few people here that are expressing their love of horses. Well, me too. Maybe there's some horsey girls out there who were just essentially born this way and played with Breyer horses instead of Barbies, and we know who we are. So I'll show you another thing to use for bringing horse spirit in your life. It's talked about in the book. This is a tail tip. This is the actual tip of my own horse's tail, Pendragon, who is a big feature of this book. And this tail tip was thoughtfully collected, held on up here and cut as I'm thinking about what I want for that horse, the safety I want for that horse, the protection when I'm not there. And I also want to carry his energy into my own life. And this is an easy thing that anyone could make for your altar or for attracting horse spirit in general. The thing to be careful of is, where did you collect it? You can find horsehair sources online that say that they were humanely collected, but don't trust that, because you can humanely collect hair from a horse that's already dead. In other words, you don't want to get your tail tip from a slaughterhouse. So you want to find someone who has a horse and ask if you can have the tip of their tail next time it needs to be trimmed. Now, I've also infused this with oil and placed it on my altar. So this tail tip connects me and my horse always. Let's see, additional concepts from the book, asks Catherine. The book has several sections: the history and culture of horses, then the spiritual connections with horses, such as tarot and altars, altars, imagery, actual things you can do with your horse, connecting your chakras. Horses have chakras just like people. And then it goes on into the very basic beginnings of dealing with horses. So that might be something April might appreciate, because it talks about how to have a companion horse and how that can change your life. It changed mine. The value of my horse is spent in time with him, not necessarily riding. You don't ever have to ride a horse at all to benefit from this big companion animal. And it goes into depth about how that can change you. The book also has horsemanship basics, basic for people who have never handled a horse at all. It's not a book about learning to ride. It's a book about learning how to properly care for a horse so that you can have your own therapy companion. Other resources on horse spirit work, asked Jennifer. One of my favorites is by Gawani Ponyboy, who is a Native American writer, and he goes into a lot of depth about what is the nature of a horse? How do you bond with the horse? What should you do other than just get on its back and make it go? And of all the horse books I've read, that one is probably my favorite. The other one that I really like is The Tao of Horsemanship, which talks about the spiritual nature of the horse and the reflective nature of the horse. And the story of a woman who bought an expensive horse and then the horse was lamed. And so she learned that time with that horse was more valuable than even riding it. And her story is very amazing. And it also gets into depth about all the therapy horses can do. Horses are used in equine assisted therapy for everything from spinal injury to autism, to prisoner reform, to juvenile delinquency programs. There's something about a horse that can break through with a person who needs help better than a person. As for the physical help, the movement of sitting on a horse moves the spine. So for someone with a spinal injury, it actually lets those muscles move in a natural way. It's very rehabilitative. And if you can't afford a horse or don't want one yet, getting involved in an equine assisted therapy program in your area is a way to help people and learn about horses. Let's see. Does the Knight's horse lead us through the tough times? Well, this is from Kelly. The Knights rode the big battle horses. So the Knights on the Tarot are all doing different things in different ways. If you're needing to get through tough times, my inclination would be to stick with Spirit Horse and figure out where you're at, check in with yourself, find out what your own feelings are, and then decide if you need one of those other horses. So all of the horses lead you through tough times, just in different ways. And let's see, Lady Raven says, I've been around horses all my life. Now I understand more about why I had always felt more centered around my 3 babies. This is true. Nothing will ground and center you like a horse, because when you're around a horse, for your own safety, you have to be in the moment. You must be grounded and centered. You don't have the luxury of looking away or being distracted or thinking about your problems. You have to focus on the horse. Gradually you learn, oh, this is what it means to be here now, be in this moment. I'm thinking about what I'm experiencing. I'll think about what this horse is experiencing. But as for my worries or my sadness or my stress, I can let all that go for now. And so horses give you that break to recharge, just like your cell phone. It can't keep going forever. So we need to recharge in tough times and be in the moment and be here now. And that's what horses do for us. So I really appreciate everyone coming, and thanks so much. And I hope to hear from you. And everyone have a beautiful horsey day.